Hidden from view, the true drama on Dallas unfolded. The awful truth was divulged by Linda Gray at the age of 84. Her back was braced after working 22-hour days. Earnings for male co-stars were millions higher. Plus, producers plotted her demise after she requested to direct. Yet, that is far from the most sinister secret. Here is the shocking account of Sue Ellen Ewing's life. Linda Ann Gray came into this world in Santa Monica, California on September 12, 1940. Things were drastically different in the United States during World War II. Due to low oil prices, only 11 cents per gallon, few people were able to make ends meet. Growing up in Santa Monica, though, was a dream come true. Aside from its rapid expansion, it boasted beaches and a world-renowned pier. The population was growing, and with it, the pace of change. Culver City, which is somewhat close to Hollywood, was where she spent the majority of her upbringing. Leslie Gray was a watchmaker, and he was her father. His work honed Linda's patience and attention to detail, which she put to good use in her acting career. Numerous film studios dotted Culver City. It was the setting for several iconic films, including The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind. Though she hadn't entered the field quite yet, she was immersed in it on a daily basis. A prominent place in town was her father's shop. Timepieces weren't exactly inexpensive or throwaway back then. Good watchmakers were in high demand, and Leslie Gray was among the finest. A lot of Linda's time was spent there, observing her father painstakingly repair small gears and springs. Although she didn't know it at the time, observing his work would greatly benefit her acting career. Even though they were poor, her family was able to live well. The Catholic school Notre Dame Academy, which she attended, had an emphasis on both academics and the arts. She made her stage debut as Cinderella in a school production in 1955. She was anxious, yet there was an irresistible pull toward acting. Something great started with that little school play. She occasionally crossed paths with prominent actors due to Culver City's proximity to Hollywood. At the age of 15, she had a brief but unforgettable encounter with Lucille Ball at a neighborhood pharmacy. Linda had auburn hair, which the famed redhead complimented. Even though it seemed insignificant, she couldn't shake it. After that, she understood that famous people were still human. Perhaps she, too, could be one. Her entry into show business began in the early 1960s. Instead of a role as an actress, she modeled. As she patiently waited at the bus stop, a talent scout caught sight of her. At 5 feet 7 inches tall, with strong features, she had an arresting appearance. In 1961, she landed her first modeling gig after that. For the day, she made $25 by posing for a tiny clothing business. It was a beginning, though it was little. The Ford Modeling Agency signed her in 1963, and she began to appear in print commercials for major brands. No matter the industry, be it beauty, fashion, or even home goods, her face would complement everything. In 1964, she had one of her most fruitful early jobs shooting ads for Coca-Cola. Sales in Southern California increased by 8% due to her grin alone. She was ideal for the booming 1960s television advertising industry. There were 387 ads featuring her between 1965 and 1975. Because of this, she became one of the advertising industry's most famous faces. It got so bad that she was even dubbed Queen of Commercials by her peers. In 1968, she had a high-paying job with Playtex Undergarments. In spite of the little amount of time she worked, she was paid $50,000, an amount that, in today's dollars, would be more than $370,000. The United States wasn't her only market. Among the first American models to feature in ads in Japan, she broke into the industry in 1969. She was the featured actress in an Asian-wide advertisement for Shiseido Cosmetics. This catapulted her to even greater fame and paved the way for her acting career. Even though it occurred in 1967, nobody at the time knew about one of the most bizarre and surprising events of her career. That same year, The Graduate hit theaters, and its poster quickly rose to the ranks of cinematic legends. Dustin Hoffman stood at the forefront of the poster, while a woman's leg extended across the frame. Those years were filled with the widespread belief that the limb belonged to Anne Bancroft, the actress who portrayed Mrs. Robinson in the film. However, Linda Gray came clean in 2013. In reality, it was her limb. On August 19, 1967, at Paramount Studios, the photo shoot took place. Since Anne Bancroft was unavailable that day, Linda was last-minutely contacted by the studio. At the age of 27, she was blissfully unaware that she was going to witness a moment in history. Bob, the photographer, took more than 100 pictures as she held her leg still for 3 hours. The shot was finally theirs. In today's money, the $25 would be roughly $200 for the job she did. The only thing she did was sign a generic release form. She was never acknowledged. After selling millions of copies, the poster became an iconic symbol of the film industry. For many years, nobody knew the real story. Not even Dustin Hoffman was aware. He was taken aback by the news when he learned it in 2016. "Some people have paid me more for my legs than my acting chops," Linda joked while laughing about it. Her involvement with The Graduate, however, was far from done. She played the role of Mrs. Robinson in the 2001 London stage version of The Graduate, at the age of 61. No one saw Linda Gray's foray into acting coming. In 1962, at 22 years old, she got her first Hollywood job, but not in the way most people do. She did not have any screen time or character development. It was her leg. The Graduate movie poster included Anne Bancroft's leg, and she was cast as Bancroft's body double. And why is that? The fashion designers preferred her leg. It wasn't until 1963 that she began to get modest film parts, and even those weren't always successful. She played the role of a college student in the film Under the Yum Yum Tree. Her lines were originally cut just before filming began. It was an absurd justification. The film's leading man, Jack Lemmon, was jealous that she stole the spotlight from him because of her innate magnetism. For years, she remained silent on the subject. The only reason she made an appearance in Palm Springs weekend that year was to visit a buddy who was working there. Upon seeing her, the director immediately cast her in a supporting role. A glitch, nevertheless, did exist. She wasn't part of the Screen Actors Guild, so they secretly paid her in cash to avoid union issues. She started landing guest spots on TV in the 1970s, but it was a struggle. She was cast as a self-assured woman in Marcus Welby, MD. However, the writers drastically altered her role only 2 days prior to filming. Instead, she was a defenseless patient now. And why is that? They altered her portion to accommodate Robert Young's request that his character have more emotional sequences. An entirely new script was crammed into her head in one night. She managed to keep her cool under pressure, and the producers couldn't have been happier. The 1976 filming of Switch was one of the most bizarre events of her early career. Slapping Robert Wagner was a scenario she had to do. She gave in to his demands and gave him a real punch. She gave him such a strong slap that it marked his face during filming of the last take. No one was furious about the apparent tension on set. Rather, they admired her for how authentic the moment appeared. After that, in 1977, she played a pioneering role. She played the role of Linda Merkland in Norman Lear's All That Glitters. That part made history. It was the first time a transgender character had ever been a regular on an American TV series, and she played a transgender lady. However, the casting news was kept under wraps until the very end. She hesitated upon learning the news. Quitting was even considered by her. Norman Lear set up a meeting between her and a trans lady living in San Francisco, and she was persuaded. Gray reconsidered after much discussion. She went to tremendous lengths to be ready for the part. She assumed the identity of a male for 2 weeks. She acted more manly by binding her chest. She attempted to use a women's restroom one day while dressed in this manner, but she was refused access. She had a profound appreciation for the challenges transgender persons encounter at that period. When it first aired, the show was daring. People weren't prepared for the future it depicted, in which gender roles were inverted. Not only did some TV stations decline to carry it, but advertisers withdrew out before it ever aired. A flashback depicting Linda Merkland before her transition was one moment that generated a lot of criticism. They applied extensive makeup and prosthetics to Gray to make him look like the character instead of casting a new actor. This was revolutionary when it happened. Some have since voiced their disapproval of the decision to not cast a trans actor. The performance was brief. After only 13 weeks, it was scrapped. The effect, nevertheless, was long-lasting. In the hundreds of letters Gray received, transgender fans expressed their elation at finally seeing an ally on television. She became an outspoken supporter of LGBTQ+ rights after being deeply affected by a letter from an Ohio teenager. Coming next was Dallas. Gray earned the role of Sue Ellen Ewing in 1978, and it altered her life. She was almost passed over for the role, though. Mary Fran was the first actress offered the part, but she declined. Little did Gray realize that she was even being considered. Without informing her, her agency submitted her photo. She was unprepared for the audition